Most people think a traffic stop gets dangerous only when things get loud or aggressive. But the truth is, the real danger starts much earlier, the moment an officer casually says, "Step out of the vehicle for a second." That line sounds harmless, almost routine, but what happens next can completely change your safety, your rights, and even the entire outcome of the stop. This video is about the rule that decides everything, a rule most drivers never learn until it's too late. A rule that separates a normal stop from a situation you can't control. And once you understand it, you'll never open your door the same way again. Today, I'll show you the exact words to say, the moment to act, and how to protect yourself legally without arguing or looking difficult. This isn't about fear. This is about knowing the difference between power and permission. Watch closely because the next few minutes might save you from a mistake many drivers don't see coming.
First thing to know, am I being ordered or asked? The very first thing you must understand before you even think about opening your door is this. There is a huge legal difference between an officer asking you to step out and an officer ordering you to step out. Most drivers never notice this difference, and that's exactly why they lose control of the situation. Officers often use soft, polite language that sounds friendly, but in reality, it's meant to make you move without thinking. When an officer says, "Can you step out for a moment?" that is a request. A request means you have a choice. You can say yes, or you can say no. Nothing bad happens if you decline because they haven't given you a lawful command. But when an officer says, "Step out of the vehicle," that becomes an order, and the law treats these two moments totally differently. This is where your power lies. You don't argue, you don't debate, you simply make the moment clear by asking one simple line. "Officer, are you asking me or ordering me to step out?" That sentence is not rude, it's not aggressive, it's not confrontational, it is clarity. And clarity protects you more than anything. Why? Because in the United States, the law says officers can order a driver out of the vehicle under certain conditions, mainly connected to officer safety. This comes from a major Supreme Court case called Pennsylvania v. Mims. But here's what most people don't realize. That ruling doesn't give officers unlimited power. It doesn't mean they can order you out just because they feel like it. It doesn't mean they can use a fake reason or a vague excuse. They still need a legitimate safety basis. When you ask whether it's a request or an order, three important things happen. First, the officer is forced to reveal their true intention. Second, the situation becomes crystal clear on your recording. And third, you avoid being tricked into voluntarily stepping out when you didn't need to. Once you step out willingly, it becomes harder to fight anything that happens afterward because your movement looks voluntary on camera. This one question sets the tone for everything that follows. It connects to the next step you'll learn, asking for the lawful reason. It connects to recording properly. It connects to protecting your rights without turning the situation hostile. And most importantly, it keeps you in control of the moment that decides how the rest of the stop unfolds. This is the move smart drivers use, and after today, you will too.
If it's an order, the officer must have this. Once you confirm that the officer is giving you an order, not a request, the next step is understanding what the law actually requires from them. An officer cannot order you out of your vehicle just because they're curious, uncomfortable, or trying to make the stop easier for themselves. The moment they tell you, "Step out of the vehicle," they are using a legal power, and legal power always needs a legal reason. This comes from the Supreme Court case Pennsylvania v. Mims, which allows officers to order a driver out of a car only when it's connected to legitimate safety concerns. But here's what most people miss. Mims does not mean any order is automatically valid. The officer still needs a clear, specific explanation for why they're using that authority on you at that moment. So your next move is simple, respectful, but extremely powerful. For the record, what is the lawful reason for ordering me out of the vehicle? This line is like turning on a bright light in a dark room. It exposes everything. It lets the officer know you understand your rights. It reminds them that you are recording. And most importantly, it forces them to explain the real reason behind the order. If they have a valid safety reason, maybe they saw a weapon, maybe your movement looked concerning, they will say it clearly. If they don't have a valid reason, their answer becomes vague, shaky, or inconsistent. And that inconsistency becomes evidence on your side. Many officers rely on people not asking this question. They expect drivers to cooperate without thinking, because once you step out, you have already given away the strongest protection you have, the controlled environment inside your car. Asking for the lawful reason doesn't challenge the officer. It doesn't escalate anything. It simply creates a record that keeps the situation honest. An officer who is acting lawfully will have no problem giving a lawful explanation. An officer who is stretching the rules now has to explain themselves on camera, and very few want to risk that. This step also connects directly to the rest of your strategy. When you ask for the lawful reason, you set up the next move, complying under protest so you aren't accused of resisting. It also connects to understanding how your rights change once you exit, and, most importantly, it prevents the biggest mistake people make, following an order that wasn't legally justified in the first place. The smartest drivers don't just obey, they verify. And this one sentence is how you do it. 3. Never step out until you do this one safety move. Before you take even one step out of your vehicle, there is a safety move you must make, a move so simple most drivers overlook it, yet so powerful that it can protect you legally, physically, and on video. This move happens in the 3 seconds before your hand touches the door handle, and those 3 seconds decide everything that comes next. The moment an officer gives a lawful order to step out, most people rush. They react instantly. They swing open the door, they step out quickly, and they don't think about what's being recorded or how their actions will look later. But the truth is, stepping out without preparation is the biggest mistake you can make. Because the second you exit, the officer gains visual control, physical access, and more freedom to move you around. So before you move even an inch, you need to protect yourself with one powerful step. Announce your compliance and why you're doing it. Here's exactly what you say, clearly and calmly. I am complying under protest, and my hands will stay visible. This line does 3 extremely important things at once. First, it tells the officer you are following their order, removing any excuse for them to claim you were resisting. Second, it shows on camera that you did not want to get out voluntarily, which protects you later if the order was illegal or unnecessary. Third, it keeps the focus on your hands, which prevents misunderstandings about sudden movements. Most legal problems during traffic stops don't start with words. They start when an officer says they saw a quick movement or couldn't see your hands. By announcing your actions out loud, you control the narrative instead of letting someone else interpret it. This step also connects perfectly with the previous 2 moves. You already asked whether it was a request or an order. You already asked for the lawful reason for that order. Now, with this 3rd step, you're creating a clean, organized record that shows you followed the law exactly the right way. You didn't refuse, you didn't argue, you didn't act suddenly. You complied, but clearly, safely, and with evidence protecting you. And this is the part most people never realize. Your recording matters most before you open the door. Once you're outside, the camera angle changes, your environment changes, and the officer has more control over your movement. Saying your line before exiting locks in your protection before anything else happens. This 3-second move is small, but it's the smartest thing you can do.
Number 4. Once you exit, your rights change. The moment you step out of your vehicle, everything about the traffic stop shifts. Not because anything dramatic happens, but because the law sees you differently depending on where you are standing. Inside your car, you're in a private space. Courts treat your vehicle almost like an extension of your home. That means the officer's access is limited. Their ability to move you is limited, and their authority is more restricted. But the moment your foot touches the ground, that protection changes instantly. Now you're in public space, and public space gives the officer far more control over how the stop continues. Most drivers don't realize this, and that's exactly why they lose their advantage the second they exit without understanding what comes next. When you're outside the vehicle, an officer can position you where they want, beside the car, in front of the patrol unit, near the curb, or even away from your passengers. They can ask more direct questions, observe your body language more closely, and monitor every movement you make. They can also separate you from your passengers, which removes the safety of having witnesses right beside you. Inside the car, everything you do is contained. Outside the car, your behavior is fully exposed. Even simple actions, adjusting clothing, turning your body, looking around, can be misread or used as justification for further investigation. That's why smart drivers never rush out without first understanding the shift that's about to happen. Being outside also changes how searches work. While the officer still needs legal grounds to search your vehicle, your exit sometimes gives them more room to claim suspicious behavior or safety concerns. Many escalations begin right after a driver steps out, not because the person did anything wrong, but because the officer now sees more angles, more movements, and more chances to interpret something incorrectly. That's why your words before exiting, "I am complying under protest," matter so much, because it makes it clear you didn't step out willingly, which protects you if things move in a questionable direction. This step also connects directly to the next move you'll learn. Once you're outside, you must manage your body language, your distance, and your words carefully. The stop becomes more open, and your rights require more awareness to maintain. Understanding this shift doesn't make the situation harder, it makes you smarter. Drivers who understand how the law changes the moment they step out are the ones who stay safe, stay protected, and stay in control from start to finish.
5. The one moment you must comply, or you'll be arrested. There is one moment in a traffic stop where you no longer have a choice, a moment where refusing to obey can turn a simple situation into an arrest. And most people don't even realize when that moment arrives. Up until now, you learned how to tell the difference between a request and an order, how to ask for the lawful reason, and how to protect yourself before stepping out of the vehicle. But there is a point when the officer's authority becomes legally enforceable, and if you push back at that moment, the law will not protect you. That moment is when the officer says clearly, "You are being detained, step out now." Those words change everything. Detained is the key term. When an officer detains you, it means they have reasonable suspicion that a law is being broken or that they need to control the environment for safety. It doesn't mean you're under arrest, but it does mean you are legally required to follow certain commands, including the order to exit your vehicle. If you refuse at that point, the law sees it as obstruction, failure to obey, or interference, depending on the state. All three can lead to handcuffs, even if you've done absolutely nothing wrong. And that's exactly why you don't fight this moment physically. You protect yourself legally instead. This is where your preparation pays off. Because you already asked whether it was a request or an order. You already asked for the lawful reason. And now, when detention is declared, the record shows you didn't jump to conclusions. You made everything clear step by step. So when the officer says you are being detained, your next move is not to argue. Your move is to comply safely while documenting the moment. Say clearly, "For the record, I am complying to avoid obstruction." That sentence is your shield. It proves two things. On camera, you obeyed the law, and you did not willingly surrender your rights earlier in the stop. Officers know these words matter. Courts know these words matter. And if anything that happens afterward is improper, this recording becomes your strongest protection. This final step also connects to everything you learned before: clarity over confusion, documentation over guessing, and safety over ego. Many people get into trouble not because they were wrong, but because they resisted at the exact moment the law required compliance. Smart drivers don't make that mistake. They comply when the law demands it, and they protect themselves with evidence every step of the way.